Welcome everyone to the 2023 US West Coast Annual Meeting. Glad to have you here and let you know what we've done and what's going to be in our future. Next slide. The purpose of our chapter is to celebrate and inform members and guests about the purpose of today is to celebrate and inform chapter members and guests about our successes, events, and volunteer work in this fiscal year and what the current status is. And we also want to learn what your needs and ideas are about future direction and leadership for the chapter and programming for the fiscal year 24, which starts this weekend. We'll be going over this welcome, and then we'll look at our slate and the current board. I'll be giving some chapter highlights, and then we'll get reports from program, membership, finance, and operations, and then look at your ideas for programming and leadership and feedback from members. So with that agenda, our current board, or the 2022-23 board, I've been president for 2 years, and Barbara has been secretary for a long time. Prior to that, she was a program chair. Our treasurer has been open, but it's been a group effort to do the treasury. And a lot of that is now done by the headquarters, so it's not that difficult a thing to do. They send us the reports and we just verify them. Membership, Norma Wattenpau has been doing that and has been absolutely fantastic, and you'll hear why. And Angie has been doing our operations, and Marcy, our marketing. And Aklesh came on this year as a new at-large director, and it was very helpful in sourcing events. So thank you to the whole board. I really appreciate all your support over this past year and earlier too. Next slide. We have some outgoing board members. Barbara, who has been our secretary or past program chair since 2005, is going to be going off. Thank you, Barbara, so much for all of your help and guidance and everything that you did. We had a sustainability program back in 2009, 10, 11, 12 that Barbara was in charge of for all of our sessions in San Francisco that we held were focused on the sustainability theme way before a lot of people were doing sustainability. So Barbara, for that and everything else, thank you. Aklesh Gulate, he's the former president of IASP Orange County, and he came on as an at-large director. And he was a representative from Southern California for our board this year, and we appreciated his help. He has some other things that are pressing, so he's going off the board. Norma Wattenpau came on 2 years ago on 2021 as membership chair and has done an incredible job. And Angie Roberts has been our operations chair since 2010. So thank you to both of you and for agreeing to stay on over the summer to train new volunteers in what you have done. So next slide. Our current proposed slate. I have agreed to stay on as president for another year. I sent out a letter in early June asking the chapter for volunteers, and I am pleased and proud and delighted that Sarah Garcia has volunteered. Sarah Garcia works in Southern California in Folsom, and she is going to be our both vice president, which is president-elect, and our program chair. And so ideas and all the things we're going to come up with for that, I'm really excited to work with Sarah and help her with that and orient her to the responsibilities of being president of this chapter. So that's our proposed slate there. And as of this morning, Angie Roberts, we were discussing, and we realized that because of some changes with IASP, that we will not need a operations website chair. And so she has agreed to come on as secretary treasurer because she was kind of doing a lot of that anyway. And so we are just delighted to have her stay on the board. And Leslie Evelyn, who was membership chair back in 2006 or 8, is coming back and will be a membership chair. And Marcy Plou-Lunel is staying on. So we also welcome non-board volunteers, ambassadors to promote local networking within our West Coast region. So if you don't want to be on a chapter board, but you want to be more active, please let us know. We will have committees for membership and marketing and program. And you can certainly use people's help on that, but you don't have to worry about board meetings if you don't want to get that involved. So what we do with the proposed slate is we have this proposed slate, and basically we will be sending that out in an email to everybody, asking if there's anybody else who wants to self-nominate from our chapter. And if not, then per our constitution, the secretary will cast a single vote, and that will be the approved slate. So we don't go through a whole voting thing where you have to have a quorum per our constitution. So that's our process, and that's what we'll follow. And thank you, everybody, and especially Sarah, for coming in and agreeing, and everybody else who's staying on for the next year. Okay, next slide. This is chapter highlights. I'm delighted to say that this year we celebrated our chapter's 20th anniversary. We founded in 2003 as NorCal, Northern California, and the global board approved of IASP approved our name and region change to expand to the whole US West Coast. And under membership, you'll see just how far and how much we've increased in that. We had a request from several members in the Pacific Northwest and some in Southern California who said, we would really like to be part of your chapter, and they joined, but let's have that reflect who we are. And so US West Coast actually goes all the way over to Thailand. I think we have 2 members from there. We also adopted new ASP chapter policies that streamline chapter operations. There were things in the Constitution and bylaws that made it difficult, and ASP has done a great job, one, bringing on international chapters and also clarifying what the responsibilities of domestic chapters are. And so it's eased up a lot. Research showed that people are not joining nonprofits, especially professional nonprofits, because there's so much red tape involved in that. And so ASP has been really excellent in reducing the administrative requirements, simplifying the election and governance procedures, et cetera, while still maintaining transparency. Programming, a quick overview. We did 8 sessions this year between September and June. And according to ASP, for chapters, 4 is the new minimum. They didn't have a minimum before, but it's the minimum now of what they want a chapter to do. But they really want chapters to focus on local networking, because that's something that's unique to the chapters. So that's one of the things that each chapter can look at next year. Our session format for our virtual sessions also evolved so that we now do 90-minute presentations, which includes a Q&A, depending upon what the speaker wants. And then we add an optional 30-minute dialogue networking session where people introduce themselves, talk about their reactions. So it's not just Q&A. It really is saying, this is the content that we got, and we talk about how we used it. And about half to a third of people stay on for that extra half hour. And it's been very, very valuable and a good way to get to know other people. So if we continue that next year, I encourage you to continue to do that. The other thing I'm happy to say is that we have 115 total chapter programs since our inception in 2003. And we are able to track that. And Angie did a great job of putting it all together. So if you want to see what that is, just when you get this slide, you can click on the bit.ly, it's on the event page, and you can see a 2-page listing of all the topics and the speakers and when we had those sessions. You'll hear also more about membership under the membership report. The highlight to me is that we reached our highest membership since the early 2010s, with 63 in the spring of 2023. From when Norma came on in 2020, we were down to about 24. So Norma, I congratulate you. What you've done and the system you've set up has been just incredible and very productive. Marketing, when we changed our name, we wound up contracting with Ginger Whedon, who did social media, LinkedIn and Instagram for us to get our name out and the name change. And we also used her to market, put together information about our events online. And we now have more followers and a variety of other social media things that Angie can tell you about when she talks about the operations. But we are not going to be investing that anymore. We feel as though we've gotten what we want from that, and we'll continue with that. The other thing we did under a marketing is listing partner and member recommended events on our chapter activity page. We got a request from a member who had a session that he was doing, said, can we advertise that? And so we wanted to be able to have a place for our members to know what each other's doing. So if you're offering something and you want other people to know about it, it's not a push out, but it is there for people to look at if they go there. And then operations, the really valuable thing that I give Angie a lot of credit for is that we now have links to all webinars on demand since March 2021 and on our chapter activities page. It's free to members, and I'll show you what that list is shortly. If you missed any of those, because some of them were just really great sessions. So those to me were the chapter highlights of this fiscal year. Next. The other part of that highlight is that Norma Wattenpau, our membership chair, received the award of ASP Member of the Year, shared with another person from ASP, and who's on this call, Woody. So both of you got that, but you're not a member of our chapter, so I'm not featuring you on this slide. Norma wound up putting together a membership system that she shared with the chapter council and is now available to all chapters if they want to use it for tracking their membership and looking at it. We have found it incredibly valuable. And as I told you, we already got our highest that we've ever been. And Norma will go over and show you what the results of that system look like, which is what she shares with our board each month. So Norma, thank you very much. Do you want to say anything, Norma?
I don't know what to say, but I'm honored to be recognized for the work we've been doing in membership.
Well, it's been great. Your system is just terrific. So thank you so much for doing it and sharing it. Okay, next slide. This is just our programming report. And these are the programs. We started the time, if you go on the bottom, with Patty Tucker on conscious capitalism, because we had started in actually the year before having several sessions on conscious capitalism. And then the February session with Tim Kelly, although called not conscious capitalism in the title, he is a certified conscious capitalism consultant. And so both of those two, the September and the February sessions, were both in that direction. And many of you who have been to the ASP conference in Atlanta, ASP and conscious capitalism is creating it's created kind of a partnership link. And so we're doing more with that. And we are likely going to continue our focus on that into next year. Then in October, Tom Hogan did an excellent session looking at principles, frameworks, and standards to promote conscious capitalism. So that also fell into that. But what are the systemic things that you have to do and look at? Aklesh then found Victor Fay, who is a certified trees master consultant. And if you are not familiar with TRIZ, T-R-I-Z, it's a system of problem solving that was developed in Russia in the 1930s and is a very powerful system. And it was so well received in November that we had a second session in January. So if you have not seen it and you want an overview of what TRIZ is and how to really use that system for systemic innovation and specifically applied to strategy, that's in the January session. And the first session in November was really more just using the systemic innovation. So I really encourage people to look at both of those. I mentioned Tim Kelly. And then in March, this is, if you recall, back in the early spring, was when ChatGPT and AI was coming. And we asked Maria Accente, who's with PwC in the UK, to talk to us about responsible AI. And a lot of the things that she said are coming through now in terms of what's necessary, the regulation and a variety of other things. So it was really a very, very good preview of what was going to be happening. So we really appreciated that. And we ended the year with Jim Gitney, who wrote a book called Turning Strategy into Results that we thought would be very pragmatic. And indeed it was. So if that is a topic of interest to you, as a member, it's free. If you're not a member, it's $25 because it's in the ASP store and you can access it from our chapter activity page. Okay, Angie, it's the programming report. We also, for our anniversary, we had in January, on January 18th, we had a West Coast Board recognition lunch and invited past board members and past speakers. And it was just a way of celebrating in person kind of the 18 years of NorCal plus the 2 of the US West Coast, and got a couple of pictures there. We missed getting a picture of everybody there, but you see on the bottom, Ken Ketch, one of our early members and president and treasurer, and Mary Winby, and next to him is his wife, Susie, or girlfriend, Susie. And Mary Winby and Leslie are there. They were both on the board early, and Mary there again. And Stacy McCarthy, who followed Alan and I as co-president with Jeff Williams, is there. And so she came, and Gay Clemson was a presenter and has just been a long-term member there. Alan Leeds is still active. He's responsible for the global webinars. And that's Tim Kelly, who did the presentation on True Purpose, which was an excellent one. And all the way on the left, Chris Schaefer has been a real friend and guru around conscious capitalism, and is, I think, the stimulus for why we have done so much with that. And there I was with a chart pad for the first time in I don't know how many years because of COVID, but this was an in-person meeting, and it was really fun for all of us to get together and have lunch. So we appreciated having that session and celebrating 20 years of our chapter. Next. For those of you who are interested in the event and the report of the data about it, one of the things we noticed in looking at the data is that registration is primarily by IASP members, but not necessarily US West Coast members. We have a larger percentage or number of people who are members, but out of chapter members, which is fine. But we're glad that we're being recognized as something that's valuable. We have a lot of international members who come onto our chapter as well. Just so that you understand our business model, the event revenue is solely by non-members, because members can come for free. That's one of the basic tenets of ASP. And so when we do the finances, I'll say more about that. The graph on the left or in the middle is our event registration type. So it shows you whether we have the orange non-members and the registered members. And the largest session we had back in April 2022 was, the title was The Death of Strategy. Ard Peter from Europe talked about that. Norma had heard him speak and brought him in, and that was really good. And then True Purpose and the January 26th, I'm forgetting what that one was. Oh, I think that was Peter DiGiamarino. Those both had 67 members, or some other really large sessions that we've had. On the right side, you find that that's where it shows the subtotal of the attendees that come. And so that's where we got looking at, just like as here, people register and then they're glad to get the video, which generally comes out about a week or so after. Okay, that gives the event report. And I would like to turn it over to Norma, and she will explain our current membership situation and the reason for the dip, and also her system. Go ahead, Norma, take it away.
Sure, happy to do so. So we've been tracking our membership by not just raw numbers, but types of membership for about, I don't know, I think we must have about 2 years of data. And the biggest boost we had was actually in the first year when we expanded and incorporated memberships from other geographies. Prior to that, we were just the NorCal chapter and have since seen a lot of growth in other areas where we've added new members. So you can see we had, I think when I started, we had on the order of something like 30 members. We grew that through the first year. Through this past year, it's been a slower growth. We did have a dip this past month in May. We had 8 members who were up for renewal all at the same time, and we're not able to capture them in the renewal. But until then, we had pretty stable membership.
Something about grace. Why don't you just explain the grace period?
Yeah, well, we have a grace period, which means that from the time that your membership officially expires, you have 2 months of grace, 60 days of grace, in which we, part of my outreach strategy is to reach out to people who are about to renew, who in that grace period, to try and let them know we want you back, inform them of activities going on in the chapter, events that they might be missing. And that's part of the retention strategy as well. So we had a number of people who were on that grace period and didn't renew in that month. So we lost them. But, hope springs eternal. We'll keep trying to reach out to them and trying to gather them back into the fold. Right. In the map, you can kind of see the distribution of how many folks we have through that throughout the West Coast. We have 2 in Alaska, 1 in Hawaii, and smatterings all up and down the coast. The others are just all over the map. As Joyce mentioned, there's 2 in Thailand and 1 in Connecticut, and just places you wouldn't expect, but they've chosen to be affiliated with the West Coast chapter, and so they're as memberships counted within that.
Yeah, just a comment on membership, so that when you join ASP, and I think everybody here probably knows, you have the option. You don't have to. You can be a member at large, or you can choose to join a chapter. And they don't do it automatically, because some people want to go where they work, some people where they live, different things. So we don't always know who's where, but we know who's on our chapter list.
Who's on the database
Right.
who said they want to be part of our membership. So one thing is to note the outreach strategy, because I think this has been particularly important for retention and engagement. Is to send a welcome note to all new members, invite them to meet and have a conversation about what their expectations are, answer any questions we have about membership and benefits and how they might better engage with the chapter. One question I always ask is would they be interested in volunteering and become more engaged? And I think that's one thing that's important to note, is that engagement really keeps members active.
Mhm.
And just tuning into a webinar once in a while is not enough to keep someone really interested. They engage in volunteering or in the certifications or other activities. That's when they really become part of the community. I think that pretty much explains it. Anything else that you want to point out, Joyce?
Yeah, I forgot to say, if anybody has, we're such a small group, we had a larger registration, but this often happens. So if anybody has any questions as we're going along, or want us to go back to any slides, that's perfectly fine. I think we're doing okay here. So no, thank you, Norma, for doing this, for setting up this system. And the thing that I found really interesting is that, Norma has an Excel spreadsheet that she adds the data that she gets every month, and it just automatically populates all of this. And then we put this on our collaboration center, so we have a whole record of it. And what she also does, which is not here, is on that she'll put down the names of people. And then as a board, we say, well, who knows anybody who's expiring or whatever. And so we try to make it personal. Not that they're personally expiring, but their membership is expiring.
Personal outreach.
And so the whole board gets involved in the outreach in that way. So that's the only other thing that's on here that's not that she does that's very useful from our board meetings when we review. Oh yeah, there's so and so. So we reach out there. Okay, next one. Okay, finance report. We have a current balance through May 31st of $5,000, et cetera, dollars. Our revenue sources year to date, we made 1,400 plus. As I said before, we get non-member registrations. That's $25 a piece. What we also get is a membership rebate, and that's 15%. It used to be 25% when we had real meetings, and you had meeting costs and stuff like that. The ASP board revised that down to 15%, but it does give us some leeway, and I believe that they are leaving that because they want us to support local programming. And so that's one of the things that I'd like to be able to, for Sarah and I to be working on this year, which is what can we do to help support something. And we have a number of different ideas of when she and I spoke that we came up with, and other things that we're going to go talk with the board. We're typically dark over the summer. We don't have events over the summer. We use that to recoup and figure out what our planning is. And then usually have started with events starting in September. So the membership rebates will be useful. And our only expenses other than this past year, our social media project, is the headquarters fee. And that is a really good deal because they provide the Zoom, they provide a lot of stuff. We have the members, and they just redid their, I think everybody here who's a member knows that they just redid their website. And Angie was telling me how much better it is now than, from an underlying perspective. So it's, I think that from the perspective of chapters, you get a fair amount of support, a really good amount of support The administrative director, Stacy Yerby, does a terrific job and is very responsive. So anyway, so I think we're fine and stable, and staying around this should be fine. We may try to do, we did courses before where we actually raised some money and charged members, and we did that last year. We had one on conscious capitalism and strategy, and I'm in conversation with Chris Schaefer now. We may repeat that in the fall. It's a 4-session program on conscious capitalism that we did for members last year, and we may offer that again this year. So we'll put that into the programming, and you'll see more about that come the fall. Welcome, Stan Rosen. See you are joined us. Okay. You come in at the finance time. Stan's a past president of IASP and is now a member of our chapter as well. Okay, it's being recorded so you can get the beginning part. Angie, why don't you talk about the operations report?
Okay, my name's Angie Roberts, and I'm doing operations. As Joyce said, this is my last few weeks of doing operations, and I'll be happy to share anything that I have, any resources, tools, everything that we have. I've kept, Joyce and I were laughing about this beforehand. I keep everything, and sometimes that is a painful exercise to keep everything, but in the end it's really great because I have lots of samples then to pass on to the next person. As far as our chapter activities go, operations is kind of like, I was telling Joyce earlier, it's kind of like when you get your radiator fixed in your car. Nobody sees it. You know it happened because you paid the bill, but nobody else knows. And that's the way it kind of is with operations. We really try to be in the background and no one notice us, because if you notice us, then something went wrong probably. So as far as the webinars on demand go, we are, Joyce and the board and I, we all work together on figuring out a plan how to save all of our assets since March. And we have quite a few now, a couple of pages now in the resource area of the IASP main website. You'll see a sub-store in the main resource center of the US West Coast webinars. And as Joyce said, they're all free to members. I would really encourage you to listen to any of those. Some of them, Dr. Hogan and Maria, they were just really, I think we were all even more impressed when they started speaking than we were by what we thought they were going to say as we were planning it. So I would really encourage you to check that out. The other thing we did in operations, besides saving everything, is we did document the things that we do. So if someone is going to carry on this process of saving the recordings afterward, we have it down to a few steps, and then the recordings are saved. We also participate in as many of the worldwide volunteer leadership calls as we can, really more to be sure that we're in line with what the headquarters board is doing as a chapter, but also really just to be a friend to the other chapters. And some of them are starting out, they're refreshing the chapter, and so they're looking for help from chapters that are doing well. That's one of the great things about our chapter. We really like each other and we get along really well. We're very frank with each other, but we really like each other. And so we're happy to work together. It's not, during crunch times, it can be, an amount of work, but with IASP headquarters really helping chapters, we really feel like that's going to help with some of the volunteer loads, with some of the roles, as Joyce mentioned, we're not really going to need an operations chair anymore because headquarters is going to handle so many of those things for us, which will be really wonderful. We also, one of the benefits that we have in, the old NorCal that, US West Coast also got to take advantage of, is a platform called GroupMine that was started, a company owned by one of our previous presidents, Ken Ketch, and he has sold that. And now Geo Group is purchased our instance of our platform and is working together to download our information so that we don't lose anything, and has created this, a safe place for all of our documents. So we really thank the Geo Group and Joyce and Leland for giving their time and their resources to save all of our documents so that you all have, the history to carry forward with you as you go forward as a new board. So anyway, we're pretty excited how it's turning out for us in NorCal. So that's my report. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them.
Okay. Not hearing any questions or seeing any hands up. Let's, we can move along. Okay, feedback. We decided not to make this a formal thing, but really just want to make it a dialogue. And I'd like to ask people to unmute and maybe just talk about, if you came here, if you have any questions from anything we've done earlier, that would be great. But any ideas or any thoughts about future programming or recommended future focus for the chapter? We can either say it here or we ask you to send it, but I think we have some time till 1:15. Anybody have any ideas in terms of coming here that you wanted to share? Susan, yes.
Hi, everybody.
Long-term, very long-term member, Susan Harris. Yes.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Norma, just awesome job on the membership. Just really, really want to appreciate what you've been doing. Just gonna, give a very slight update on me. I'm in semi-retirement now, so I am not in a place where I'm going to be applying what I learned at IASP. But I'm still very interested. So I don't know how many other members we have who are kind of in my position, but it's kind of a different kind of engagement that I have than people who would want to turn around and just apply what they're learning.
Right.
So I just want to note that. What I've been thinking about is, I really love the conscious capitalism theme. And I'm wondering whether I was one of the people in way back when we did the sustainability thing. I was one of the people who was kind of pushing for that. And I think, the urgency around that is even more today. I mean, we are in a planetary emergency, and there's all kinds of stuff going on, with all the money flowing from the infrastructure and the Inflation Reduction Acts. We have we're swimming in this soup now of people really trying to get to net zero and trying to figure out how to contribute to that. And I'm wondering if we should try as an organization to get more specific about our conscious capitalism and try see about, are there people out there who can address how people are, for example, electrifying their businesses, or other forms. Joyce, you're laughing.
Finish and then we'll explain why Sarah and I are laughing.
Okay. Oh, Sarah, you're laughing too. Nice to meet you, Sarah. So just this, I think the opportunities for private enterprise and nonprofits for that matter, but certainly for private enterprise to really step into this arena and step on the gas, to use a very bad metaphor now, step on the sun, or step on the wind, or whatever, I think is just huge and desperately needed. So anyway, that's my thought.
Sarah, you wanted to say why we were laughing?
Yeah. I'm the strategist for the California energy grid, or now becoming larger and larger, the West Coast energy grid. And so we're kind of world thought leaders, global thought leaders in this space around electrification, climate change, all being pushed by climate change. And of course, the infrastructure reduction or act, the IRA recently is a big money source that's going to fuel research and development. But yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying. And I think as the West Coast chapter in general, California, Oregon, and Washington are definitely global thought leaders in this space. And I think especially California, but also just in the West, generally sort of leading the idea around this idea of conscious capitalism or sustainability, which sort of predates even conscious capitalism, but sustainability
Right.
is not just sort of the right thing to do from a purpose-driven perspective, but also really makes good financial sense, starts to
Oh.
really pay off fiscally.
Yeah, more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of evidence for that. You know, one of the things that I think is extremely surprising to people is typically the people who go out and put solar panels on their homes are actually conservatives, and they do it purely for fiscal reasons. And it just so happens to also help the environment. So I think bringing in some topics like that would be great for this chapter in particular, who's sort of leading the front. And another great opportunity would be, you know, identifying members who have some program ideas or even thought leaders in the space, because a lot of it is coming from this area of the world.
Yeah.
Great.
Amen.
Very good. Susan, in addition, I will tell you, I went to a webinar a Cornell professor spoke about, and the solution in this semi-retirement, because I was going through that same thing. What I learned from her is she is in a state of preferment, retirement, but basically in preferment, you do what you prefer. I'm actually entering that stage, because even with work, I mean, mine is a sales and service thing. So I can sell a project, I can service it, I can sell one and not service it, I can service something else that a colleague sells. And so I'm really looking at what do I want to do? And so ASP is part of my preferment. And so is the stuff I'm doing with geo and golf, and, you know, just trying to put your life together in a way that fits. So I found thinking about preferment being very useful. So I gift that to you, Susan. Maybe that will be helpful.
Oh, thank you, Joyce. That's one wonderful idea. I'll tell you, I have two things very quickly that are running interference.
Mhm.
One is I actually need to rest for a while. And unfortunately, I can't, because I actually have a new job, which is kind of family crisis. So I just, you know, I thought I was going to be able to be celebrating, you know, and thinking about preferment, to use your wonderful term, but I don't have that luxury at the moment. But I will look to that in the future for sure. So thank you.
Great. Okay. Woody, let me just ask you, you're on here, not a member of our chapter, but you're more than welcome to be here. Some feedback from you on this session, or what you're doing, or anything you want to let people know about us, or what you would like to see West Coast.
Sure. Thank you. This is the first time I've attended your business meeting, so I'm interested to hear how much progress you made this year compared to the other chapters. I think you're doing a pretty good job. I haven't really researched much the other chapters, but I would guess that they're not quite as far along as you are. I'm with, for those of you who don't know me, I'm with the Government Community of Practice, and a couple of things that we're doing this year. We're trying every quarter to come up with something new. And so in the first quarter, we created a catalog of webinars, because as you've done on your site, you posted the webinars, the list of webinars to the site. And we heard from our members that it's really hard to go into the ASP store and find anything.
Yeah.
So we created a catalog, which is an Excel spreadsheet that lists all the webinars that we have recordings of, and provide some background information that's used for the announcements, and then a hyperlink to the ASP store location. So if you go there, you can just quickly find a recording. Now, I don't know if it's being used anymore, because any more than it was before, you know, that people are going to ASP store any more than they did before, because I haven't been able to get any statistics on that, but my hope is it is making it easier. The second thing, which we just did actually yesterday, was we are beginning to collect strategic plans from members, either strategic plans or pages, web pages that are outlining their strategy framework. And we're hoping to maintain that list over time and build that list. We started out with 12 organizations. We solicited members from across IASP who are government COP members and asked them to send us a link to their current plans. And we hope that that will stimulate some more collaboration or discussion, because you're able to find out, you can see a plan, but also the name of the member is listed, so that if you want to follow up and learn more about what they're doing, you can contact that person directly. And it's also being set up so it's sorted by level of government, like, for example, city government versus federal government versus international. So we were kind of disappointed in our initial response. We identified about 45 organizations that might have a plan that we could post. We only got 12 right now, but we're starting with that, and we'll be pursuing that, publicizing it more in the coming months. If any of your members are government or quasi-government, it doesn't have to be, a county government. It can be a regional airport or a hospital or anything that's, related somewhat to a government activity. We're happy to have those included in the list. And I think maybe both of these projects could be expanded to all of IASP eventually, but right now we're just staying in our swim lane and trying to at least build out and learn more about how we can use these tools to help collaborate. That's about all I have. I am, one other thing I do, I've been involved with University of Southern California for many years. I'm an alumni, and I'm currently doing some work with students there. And one of the things we're doing is we're working on a homelessness research project. And of course, California is the center of, is the Super Bowl of homelessness, unfortunately. But one of the things I've learned from that effort is that many of the organizations that are called continuums of care actually produce strategic plans, or they're actually required to prepare strategic plans and develop measures for tracking how many people are homeless, how many people exit homeless, that kind of thing. And so there's an untapped group of people out there who are working in the field of strategic planning, which is very narrowly focused with their blinders on. They're focused on homelessness and social services. But I think if there were ways we could reach those groups, either that or through the contractors. There's a company in San Francisco called Homebase, which is a consulting firm that does a lot of the contract work with these organizations. And if you want to find out more, I could give you a little bit more information on that. But I think there may be some they're nonprofits that are working with federal money to implement system reforms and maybe have strategic planning requirements that could be a source of expertise and energy for the chapters. I did have one question also. I'm sorry I'm taking so much long, but I was curious if you if you were tracking, I know you're tracking a lot of things, but are you tracking the number of people in your chapter that get certified every year? And have you seen that up or down?
We have not really tracked
over the last few years.
Yeah, we have not tracked
to generate revenue for the association.
Right. We have not tracked that.
I haven't either. I've not.
Yeah. So it is something to, I think that now that the certification program is kind of, it's reorganized and whatever. And let me ask on certification. I'll come back to the other question I had for you. Is in the government, is the certification required now in any way for our certification part of built into like the level 17 or something like that? I think Stan, when we were, Stan was part of the original group that did that. And there was some notion that I know in Saudi Arabia and in Africa, the certification is becoming a job requirement. But is there any place in the U.S. that's the case?
Well, I don't know about in the U.S., but in the federal government,
Mm-hmm.
in the federal government, there's no requirement, or well, it's not even. That's not really the question. The question is,
recognized, yeah.
Are federal governments willing to pay for people to get certified voluntarily? And that's generally not the case, except perhaps in defense, which Stan can speak to.
Mm-hmm.
There is some discussion, and I'm not really all that familiar with it. Somebody on the board, I think John Manning might have been involved in. The Army has recognized, the U.S. Army has recognized the certificate program, but I don't know anything about it as far as
Okay, we can find out
what's going on. But there is some. But other than that, I haven't heard. And OPM has no requirements, and you wouldn't see anything like a certification requirement in a job announcement. That's just not something that's done. So that's an impediment. But I think, my view on this, I'm coming from federal government, but my view on this is that the real action is at the community and local government level, because if you think about it, you've got 20, 30,000 city and county governments out there and only about 200 federal agencies. So if you want to, if you wanted to try to grow your business or grow your membership, I think that the area to tap into is the city and county governments. And that's where we're kind of headed, I think.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'd be able to collaborate on something between our chapter and your COP on that. We can certainly look at that. Because
well, we did. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, because the new IASP president, Monica, is the strategic planner for Mecklenburg County, and so she's really done a marvelous job, and other places could use that. So we can come back to you with that.
Yeah, last month we had a presentation. We had a presentation last month by the King County, Washington government about how they do business planning. And I thought that was really an interesting and well done presentation. If you get a chance to take a look at that, I didn't mention to them anything about membership or anything like that, but you could follow up with them if you wanted.
Sure. Okay. All right. Just the other thing that with your Excel spreadsheet, and we wound up putting it on, I think I would love to have, that one of my biggest frustrations has been the ASP store. So that, and they have not had the bandwidth. They had before they could do anything, they had to change the website and get a lot of other problems. But I think for this next year, the notion of, we do have a resource, we want to be a thought leader, and therefore, if we have these sessions and they're very valuable, they're assets. That's exactly what Angie was saying, and we need to find a way to better use our assets and put them out there and use them for revenue, because you can make them, give it to members for free, but let's find a way to get it out there, because there are going to be people who are interested in those topics. So that's really, I think that's good.
Yeah.
So we can talk more about that. Okay, but maybe on the homelessness thing, I do want to have our new membership chair, Leslie, say something. Just introduce herself, because she got on here a little late. But Leslie, you are working, I believe, with homelessness in San Francisco as well. So if you want to make a comment about that, as well as just introducing yourself to say hi. I'll put you on the spot.
First of all, my apologies for being late. And one of the reasons I was late is I was facilitating a board meeting with the Black Community Restoration Institute that's looking at what they can do about many things in San Francisco. So it's definitely a topic of great concern to me. And I apologize again for being late, and happy to catch up. And
great.
Joyce and I have worked together for years.
Right. I told everybody you were membership chair back in 2006 or so. So.
And she dragged me back in.
I don't put it that way. You were honored to come, right? Okay.
I'm honored to come back in. Thank you, Joyce.
Okay. Well, we can't end without having Stan Rosen say something. Stan, there are so many things you can say. So just give me some feedback on today and what's exciting you and why you came, and give us an update.
Thanks, Joyce. Yeah, I'm sorry I was late. Had some other business going on, but I wanted to join this because there is such a interest in IASP in revitalizing and building chapters. And certainly this West Coast chapter is not only pioneer group, but leading group. And I'm glad you're offering, I did hear your report that you're offering expertise on chapter operations and functionality to the others. That makes great sense. However, I did miss your introductory comments. And so I'd be curious, if it's not too much of a repetition, as to what you found in the experience of the West Coast chapter. What is the value of the chapters at this point? What unique qualities do the chapters bring to IASP that you want other chapters to emulate?
That's a good question. We didn't quite go over that in the highlights. We talked about a number of things, but I'll say that my sense is that what ASP is saying, and I agree with them, it's just difficult in this virtual age, is that what the chapters can offer is local networking and relationship building based on geography, and also picking up themes that are local. During COVID, we decided as our board, for example, that we wanted to support a local business during the pandemic. And so we wound up doing a virtual wine tasting, and we paid for them to deliver wine to the people who registered and whatever. So from that perspective, that was something that only you could do locally. We do the regular sessions. And as I said, we actually have more people from out of the chapter than in our chapter who attend. So it's not unique to the chapter, but the ideas of what we come with, I'm a little bit with what Woody is saying. I think that the chapters can come up with the themes that are really unique or new or different, and you can offer these webinars. So maybe there's a there with the homelessness thing. I mean, we have some experience with that, and of course, with what's going on here and combining with government or something like that. So the chapters make a home, I think, out of a big organization. And so both domestic chapters and international chapters. And now that we've clarified what the difference is and the necessary legal differences and all of those issues are kind of resolved, I see that the role of chapters is twofold. One is to help with professional development. So you find interesting topics. One of the things I reported is that we had a session on ChatGPT, on AI, stimulated by all the stuff that was coming out on ChatGPT, and we can do it in a timely manner. Whereas the global webinars are just like booked almost 6 months or so in advance, and so you don't have that kind of, if something comes up, you can do something with it, and just trying to respond to the chapter members. But people are also really busy. What's different is that versus having in-person meetings, we stopped doing in-person meetings back in 2016 when we were in NorCal, and we went to virtual. So we did that because the traffic was so bad in Northern California. You couldn't get I turned around one time after driving for 3 hours to get to San Jose. I couldn't go to one of the meetings. I just couldn't get there. And so we've given up on large kind of meetings, but I want to really look at that with this concept of ambassadors that we talked about, local ambassadors. And so what you have with the chapter is you don't have to have the administration of having a board in every single area. That's why I think the idea of having a region, which is what our chapter really is, and then local ambassadors is a way of building. But this is new. I'm looking forward to working with Sarah, who will be our vice president and programming chair, coming on, and she's from down in Folsom, close to Southern California. So we are not going to be so limited in terms of the geography, but I think that there are ways of using it, and that there's a lot of intimacy that can happen virtually. So the role of the chapters is still to be defined. And then, of course, what Woody raised, which is the role of chapters, which we haven't done very much with in terms of supporting certification. But as that program has evolved and it's become easier for people to register, training programs are, I think, better organized now, et cetera. I think that that's going to come on. Anybody else have from the board or?
Joyce, if I could just thank you for that and give you a little feedback. I really appreciate your views and what works and what doesn't work. From my perspective, there are two things that are really lacking that we had in the chapters that we don't have now.
Oh,
one is the socialization that goes on in friendships and interactions and schmoozing and networking, et cetera, that really, we can't do that virtually. I think there still is a role for getting together face to face at the local level. And the second thing, which I don't know how to solve, but I think the chapter may be, is I've noticed on the webinars that ASP or IASP has now, there is much less interaction and conversation and discussion and analysis, sharing of views, and really spending time to think about what did we just hear and what does it really mean. That has really become in my view, a shortfall of the way IASP operates now. I'd hope that the chapters can help solve that. That's just my view. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, because the second one I did address, we have evolved for our chapter to a format where we use 90 minutes for the presentation and Q&A. We tell the presenter that's what they have. And then we have an optional, because our board decided you just don't want to have to force people for 2 hours. That's almost too long. But you book it and tell them that the session will go, and there's an optional 30 minutes. And we're finding, just as we did when we had in-person sessions, where about 50% of the people stayed after you have the break, to have a dialogue session, not just a Q&A, but a dialogue. This is what I've done. This is how I've used that. And really, and our speakers wind up loving that. So
Yes.
we have put that into our model for how we do our virtual sessions. And
Good. Hope you can share that success. Thanks very much.
so I think that's good. And if other chapters want to do that, I'd be more than happy. But I think you're absolutely right. That interaction about what did we just hear and how could we do it? That's where I think it is possible, maybe on a local level, for a group to get together locally and watch something together and then have a dialogue, in somebody's home or something that's really informal. So we may look at some of the things like that. So, okay, well, I realize we went over our 45 minutes. Anybody else has something they want to share or say that they haven't yet shared or said? Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your support. We're looking forward to fiscal year 24. I am very, very excited with our wonderful young energy that is joining our board, and Sarah and all of her ideas. And I think her background in energy is really going to move us in a direction that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, have a wonderful summer, everybody. IASP US West Coast will be back in September with our programming, and we'll go from there.